Hello and welcome to the SurveYOUR podcast with James Baker and Jon Lever. Two chartered surveyors embarking upon a social media journey, locked in a virtual room with nothing better to do than to discuss everything surveying. And some things not. Hi everyone and welcome to our latest podcasting episode. I'm leading this one. It's very exciting. I don't often do this, so nice for me to say hello to everyone and welcome. And welcome. Hi James, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Excellent. We don't have, or do we have any feedback? I didn't think we had any.
No, I don't think we do.
No, so everyone come, please do give us some feedback. Tell us what you think. Always value your feedback and yeah, that's all good. So what's today's topic, James?
Well, today we picked up on an article that was in Modus recently, titled "Converting Shops," and no, it's not titled that at all. It's titled "Why Hotels Could Make the Best Offices." There it comes down to we can't read stuff when we're podcasting.
I think we ought to change roles back again. I don't think you're any good at it.
So I will start again.
So just go for it again. What was it?
Why hotels could make the best offices. So effectively about converting shops and hotels into office spaces in simple terms. Quite an interesting little article, really, and something that I find quite interesting. Based on I had a lot of hospitality clients, so I used to spend quite a lot of time working in hotels anyway, and I'd work in their cafes or bars or whatever, and have meetings and things with clients in there because I was. Essentially, they were my clients. So that was an interesting thing. So this is quite interesting. This is obviously slightly different. It's about converting bedrooms and things into office space. So I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but it's quite interesting. And before we kind of get into that, there's a quote in the article, which is from David Harper, FRICS, who's of Leisure Property Services, who says estimates that a typical hotel would need about 60% of its rooms to be used as workspaces in order to cover its basic outgoings. That seems like quite a lot.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I wonder what sort of how they would do it. I mean, just thinking out loud, you've got a bedroom, so you have a room. It's got a lock on the door, so it's private, isn't it? They're all padded and sound insulated to a certain extent. You could take the bed out, and then you've just got a massive space, surely, haven't you? You've already got TV in there. You've already got Wi-Fi in there. You've already got a shower. So if someone wanted to cycle to the office, if it was a local thing, or just if you wanted to take a shower, you could take a shower. You've got a sink, so I guess you could wash up cups and stuff like that. And you've already got a kettle, so they could stick a microwave in them as well. Or do, I guess, some sort of room servicey delivered to your door sort of food.
Yeah,
a bit like a sort of a Regis, but Regis Plus in a way, isn't it?
Well, a lot of them have desks already, don't they? I mean, whether they're ergonomically the best thing to work from, I don't know, because sometimes my experience of working from such places is not the greatest. But I guess if they're taking the bed out, they could put a reasonable sort of desk in there for somebody to work from.
I think if I wanted one, I wouldn't want one of their little kind of off the side of the coat hanger side type desk. I think I'd want a proper, I mean, in my mind, a desk is about 1.5 meters wide by about 1 meter deep, if possible, that sort of thing. So you want something with a decent size on it, don't you?
Yeah. But if you removed a bed, smaller than a bed.
Yeah. What about having what if you had a fold down bed? So you could, if you're away on business,
like in the movies from the olden days.
Oh yeah, that's that. Or like they have in trains, in the little cubicles in trains, they just fold down, so it's like a single bed. And you can have a little kip. Because if it was me, I'd want to have an afternoon kip. I'm getting to that sort of age.
Lunchtime nap.
Yeah,
nap like my lad.
But have a little cat nap. It'd be nice to have a bed there. Now, I was thinking if you were traveling on business, because I was wondering actually do you think this would be for traveling people or for local people?
Well, this is the thing, you see. The way the article talks about it suggests that this seems to, there's mention of Estonia, there's mention of Singapore, and it seems to be something that happens in other parts of the world. And I can't get my head around how this works in essence. Is it a temporary conversion by the hotel, or is it a permanent conversion for permanent office space? And I think that's the crucial thing of it, really. I can't see hotels wanting it as a permanent fixture unless, of course, business for hotels is slow to return. And there is a suggestion in the article somewhere that suggests it could be up to about 3 years, I think, before hotels are fully occupied in the way that they were post-COVID. If that's the case, then you'd think there might be maybe a business case for hotels to look at doing this for the next couple of years or so, 3 years, to get through that period, whilst they can then increase. Yeah. But then do they convert back? And I think it's how you do that, because if you're only doing it as a temporary measure, it's not going to be quite as nice as, say, a competitor who decides to permanently convert it for the next 2 years or whatever. That's going to be a much more attractive proposition than just going into a hotel bedroom that's just had the bed removed.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. I think it's actually not for moving people. I think it's for local, static people who, like me, have been stuck in a 6-foot box room for the last 12 months. I'm lucky I don't have a younger family. I have teenagers. So, there's not the massive distraction. I mean, you've got a younger family where you have that distraction, don't you? So I think short term, it's probably people aren't going to want to travel. It's people who are maybe going into London but don't want to go into London or commute in anymore. But it gets you away from home into a environment where you've got a bit of peace and quiet, I guess.
Yeah, I think I can see in a big city such as London or maybe Birmingham or Manchester, I can maybe see that it would work, particularly London, outside the M25, or, rather than people commuting in, which can take an hour and a half, depending on where they're commuting from, that maybe they want the option of having somewhere a little bit close to home to work a couple of days a week or something. And then that in that situation, it might be quite appealing. Yeah. The question then lies in how much space would be needed. And surely that's only going to happen if employers decide post-pandemic that they want to reduce their office space. And then it is an option where they've got people commuting in, that they do provide these smaller satellite spaces for people to work from. Because if you think it's a hotel bedroom, you're probably going to get one person in there. So
yeah, I agree. There are some bigger rooms that you might be able to, a smaller family business or something that you're bubbling up with someone already that you could share a space with, I suppose. But yeah, generally, I think you're going to be doing one space, aren't you? And also, yeah, there's a whole gambit of other things that you need to just make sure are there, don't you? So copying, printing, anything like that you would probably need to put on site.
I mean, that would be the same as a service workspace, because in a lot of hotels, we've travelled around the world, and they'll have a business centre in some of these hotels. So it's only the same if they've already got one of those, then ideal, because people, clearly there are people who are travelling on business and things and use that. So it's just about whether I think it comes down to whether there's a need. And I go back to that quote or that suggestion of an estimate of 60% of the rooms to be used as workspaces to cover the basic outgoings. I mean, I can't see a world in which there's going to be that demand that 60%, that you're going to want to look to convert 60% of the rooms.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, from my travels in the UK as well as abroad, but more so in the UK, there was always seemed to be a shortage of hotels anyway. So, is this going to be? Well, it kind of comes back to what sort of duration. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of the hotelier, the owner of the hotel, and okay, I mean, I'll give you an example. We've got one down the road from where I am. It's like a 40-bedroom sort of hotel out in the countryside. I think they've had a pretty rough ride over the last 18 months. So basically, they're selling up. So that's 40 rooms. So you're going to convert, let's say you convert, 60% it said, didn't it? So you're going to be converting, 25, not quite 30 of them, 25 of the rooms. I could see that working. I could happily take the 25 beds out and store them somewhere in a container in the back of the hotel or car park or something, and I could put some pretty decent desks in that could be put together pretty quickly and then taken out and repurposed back into a hotel later. I couldn't see that being a problem. Or you do 10 rooms and see how quickly they're taken up.
Yeah.
And you could just keep expanding based on demand. I think I'd still want to keep some bedrooms. I don't think I would convert everything.
No, I think it depends on the hotel business. Some of the large multinational hotel chains are not really probably going to be looking at doing this, because they would just move away. They would sell up or whatever and move on from the hotel.
I think you're right. It's going to be your more local.
It's going to be more of the smaller, independent type,
Yeah.
boutique type things as hotels maybe that might, because they might struggle to fill rooms and they might think, right, okay, it's about being flexible, as a lot of businesses learned in the pandemic, isn't it? And it's whether they decide that they could be flexible by offering this as an alternative or as an option to try and get some room space. But then I do wonder how the rental or how the booking and what the cost might be of
I mean that's an interesting point as well, isn't it? Yeah.
When I look at and I've been, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, I think I've been looking at office space, and you can be looking at anywhere from, depending on what you're looking for, but a hot desking type environment is somewhere in the region of £200 to £300, depending on the quality of the environment I've found. And yet then you could get an office space for 2-3 people, from or up to 4 people, anywhere between sort of £300 to £300 to £1,000. And you think, how would the hotel, if you think about an average hotel room,
that's a month, isn't it, as well?
That's a month, yeah. So if you think about the average hotel room and what a cost of that per night is,
well, you're looking at 28 days or 28 nights, aren't you? If would you put it down as, maybe you wouldn't sell all the nights, so as you said, 20 nights every month, into your £1,000, isn't it?
But are you going to manage that?
That's what, so that's £50, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say the Premier Inns that I've travelled outside of London, you can pick up for anything from around sort of 50-60 quid a night.
Yeah, true.
True, so I think some of it might be about the upselling other services.
Yes, that's true.
So you can have I mean, I've got a very large print machine in my office, and that's connected to the internet, and you can just print to it if you know what it is. So if that's sat behind reception, and so, can I print? Yeah, you'll find it on there. Just print, and it's X amount of pennies per copy. You could be kind of picking it up on that side of things, and that's a full colour, print machine where people would just have to pay the odd thing here and there. You've not got to rent your own printing machines and stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because actually there's an example in the article that suggests in some hotels in Singapore are not just offering rooms as office space, but also offering workers the use of their pools, gyms, saunas, and restaurants as well. So there's your added, income.
Yeah.
Or, as you mentioned before, room service. So
I mean, the one down the road's got a hairdresser's, got a pizza restaurant on the side. You've also got meeting rooms, so you can have bigger meeting spaces. So you can have COVID safe, meeting spaces. You've got outside. It's getting quite a nice area as well. So you've got all of those sort of benefits of if you like the countryside, of a sort of an outdoor environment. Yeah, I think for a few extra pennies, I'd let you have the dog in there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we'll have to see whether there's anybody. It would be interesting if there's any example having already happened during the pandemic. And it's just as we move out of the pandemic and people go back to what we all hope one day is the same normality that we used to live in. And I do wonder whether there will be interest in it, but who knows? People's habits may have changed.
Yeah, it's going to come down to flexibility. I mean, again, I'm just putting myself in someone else's shoes. To set up a table, and to take a bed out, and what else would change? Not a lot. You might move a bit of the furniture out. A few chaps, burly chaps, could do quite a few rooms in a day. So if you had to reconvert back and forth or whatever, I don't think it would take much to do. So it could be quite a flexible offering, couldn't it? It's quite interesting.
Yeah, potentially. I'm sure there's ways of doing it. Yeah. So an interesting thought, though. Interesting concept, I think. And so the article goes on, though, to discuss converting of retail space, which I found quite interesting.
Okay. And what sort of retail, though? What are we talking? High street or out of town, or?
Well, specifically, it references a US company called Industrious, who have been at the forefront of converting redundant retail space into co-working environments. So that is out-of-town shopping malls in the States. So obviously we don't tend to have out-of-town shopping malls, but we do have redundant retail units, often in city centres as it happens these days, when they're not in new shopping centres. But also, if you think about the out of town retail parks that we have, where you've seen gyms and things springing up at those, and more, you know, restauranty type features and all sorts of things, and they're becoming a little bit more mixed use than they probably once were. So, you know, there might be an option there for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Milton Keynes just down the road, so there's a massive shopping centre there. You've obviously got Hatfield Way. There's one over the A1. Again, a big shopping centre. And actually, just thinking about it, there's like you say, the sort of the no, what is it? There's one just over the way, the other side of town from where I am, other side of Bedford, that had a Maplin who've gone bust, and that's empty. That's stood empty now for about, and that's a big old building. That is. I reckon that could be a 2-story building. That's sort of the Maplins, the Currys, the sort of hobby craft type affair. You've got a Costa Coffee on site in a static caravan, you know, type thing, a drive-through sort of small module and stuff like that. So you do have things like that, and that's just out of town. Actually, that's just literally probably a 20-minute walk out of the town centre. So. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we don't have the malls, do we? We don't have that sort of thing, but we do have
no,
these
we don't. But you do look at it, and this suggests that which I found really interesting is that Industrious. So these are in the shopping malls. They've even had, it says, secured large corporate clients such as Twitter and Pfizer, as well as individuals. So probably more like, you know, me as a small business, or you as a small business wanting some temporary workspace, you know, without too much commitment, maybe. But certainly an interesting one. I think that's obviously like the WeWork type model, or, you know, a lot of these that you know, there's some in Derby which I've mentioned, I think, in passing on previous podcasts. So it's an interesting concept to do that. I think it almost brings you on to a conversation about repurposing any type of building into, you know, office space, I think, which is vitally important in reducing carbon footprint and all sorts of different things that you could get into the detail of. But we've got a lot of building stock as a country, I would suggest, in certain places that, you know, is redundant. It's going derelict because it's not used. There's nobody in it. And you've got to think, maybe if people want a rental, you know, owners want a rental return, could they convert such spaces? I can give some examples in Derby. I mean, there's an organisation who've got 3 now serviced office type spaces with co-working and hot desking environments, and they have got, say, they've got 3 sites: Derby, Nottingham, and Sheffield, and they seem to be doing exceptionally well. You know, they're pretty full, and there's, as an organisation, they also develop and work on other properties, and they've bought the old tax office in Derby, and they're looking to convert that into student living. So it's an interesting, you know, repurposing buildings. And then, as an example, you know, I'm looking at going into signing up for an office currently for my business, and that's in an old magistrates court, which has been completely converted. So there's office spaces throughout the. I'm not actually sure what the old court used to be. I think it's now the local studies library. I think they've stripped everything out in there.
Okay.
Which, when I was viewing, I wasn't able to get in there because they were closed. But hopefully, when I move in, I'll be able to. But the most interesting thing about that was the cells, because the old cells that you'd have prisons and things.
Were they in the basement down?
They're kind of like they had. Really interestingly, they still look like a cell. They put a new door on. They probably put new tiling in because it looked new, but in essence, it still looked similar to a cell, but with converted into a wet room. A shower in there and a toilet, and so if you were cycling or you're running into work or whatever, you could then just get a shower and stuff, which I thought was fascinating. But the best thing was, one of the old cells was used as a storage room by the local studies library, and it still had the old cell door on.
No.
I thought which was brilliant. I thought, you don't want to go in there, do you, in case somebody locks you in?
No, let me out. No, he can't come out. It's interesting. I do find all of this really interesting. I mean, I think we mentioned previously in one of the podcasts, was it, where we turned tables on ourselves and let Sam ask about it. I play Airsoft. There's a lot of sites I've played which are derelict buildings, basically buildings that are no good for anything anymore. and just waiting for the person who owns it to get some funds or cash together to develop it out. So rather than it stand empty for 2 or 3 years while they're deciding what they're going to develop out, they rent it out to these airsoft companies who then come in and you play games indoors. And there is one in Reading, I think Reading Way, that's like in an old shopping mall, which has been on our bucket list to go and play at, because it's literally on 3 levels with like an old shopping mall, and it starts like, wow, that's gonna be awesome, running around in there shooting people. Fantastic, what a great day.
Something like the zombie apocalypse. I mean, we interestingly, there was and I don't know whether they're still doing it now, but there was one in Derby, and then they've got a site in Derby, a small sort of derelict building, but they'd also got a site at Chesterfield in Derbyshire, which was an old hospital or something. And it was derelict. It wasn't being used at the moment. It was being used, and they did this. I think they used paintballs rather than airsoft. Yeah. Oh no, in fact, they might have used airsoft guns, but they basically ran it as a zombie apocalypse. So you put in there and you had to escape, and you had to shoot the zombies or whatever. And I looked at it and I always thought, well, that sounds like great fun, but what also a great use for putting you in that environment. It's very atmospheric for the game, and. They don't need to do anything to it, but actually it's a way of probably making some money for that property owner. It's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Trying to repurpose buildings and make sure that they use them rather than derelict, because derelict properties just attract crime and just, not the sort of activities that you want, really. So it's important to try and use these rather than just looking to demolish buildings and build new all the time, losing history. I think it's
I agree. And one of the other sites we play at is an old jail. It's quite a modern jail, but an old jail that's not used anymore, and that's over Corby Way, so just near just sort of on the way to Leicester,
Northamptonshire.
So that's literally as if it was a was it 1, 2, 3 wings, double story, and an outside yard, an area that's got loads of derelict cars and stuff in it now and everything. So repurposing it for sort of entertainment, for sport. I mean, I wouldn't say airsoft is an Olympic sport. You're still running around, and there's still exercise and fitness involved, even though there's a lot of fun shooting each other as well. But coming back to offices, retail space, I mean, how awesome would that be? I quite like an office in a shopping centre. I could quite get into that. I think that would be quite good fun.
If you look at shopping, I look at the one in Derby because it's where I live, and they've got all sorts of stuff in there now. They've got cinema, they've got lots of restaurants, all sorts of stuff going on. I think there's even a gym in there. And you look at it and you think, well, you've got everything around you. I know there's office blocks and there's office premises and things like that, but if you convert it as this company in the States seem to do, and you get a really nice environment for people to work in, post-recession, is that normally the time where you get a lot of startup businesses and things? It strikes me that there's been a lot of startup businesses, such as myself, obviously, in the pandemic. And I do wonder if certainly be a short-term market for it. I mean, I guess my example is the easiest way for me to get my head around it. So hopefully I'll expand as a business. And when I was looking for office space, I wanted something that was fairly easy to get into and out of, as they call easy in, easy out. And with little commitment, but at a reasonable price, a nice enough environment, probably some decent other businesses in the building, and somewhere that if I do grow quicker than planned, or just suddenly need to have extra space, that I can be quite flexible with that. And something like that, you've got to think, would be really ideal, because you're seeing these types of workplaces spring up more and more, all over the country, I would probably think. So I think, it'd be pretty cool to go into a shopping mall for your, work. And then, at lunchtime, you're right there, you can go and get something to eat at one of the food places in the food court or whatever, or go use the gym or whatever. They're quite multi-purpose spaces nowadays.
Yeah, they are. And given that, I guess we've seen the last 12-15 months, everyone has quite happily bought things online, and that retail has taken a real hammering. This might be a good way to repurpose. So we won't just have a shopping centre with food malls. You're going to have a commercial, as sort of office and shops and food malls, or whatever it might be. And it's just an interesting way of, I mean, I think it would be dangerous having an office next to the Apple store.
Well, in my case, it would have been because I'd have probably spent all my money on it.
Yeah, so all that profit you're making is going straight out the window into the Apple Store,
Yeah.
which I don't think is any bad thing.
Well, what's
But yeah,
profit for?
that's quite interesting, isn't it? I do wonder. Now, one of the things, just a thought to throw in here. I was chatting to a couple of friends, colleagues, contacts, other surveyors last week, and they're probably my age, early 50s. So they're running, they're directors of companies. They're not running their own businesses. They're running local surveying firms where they're directors in there. And one of them's a building surveyor, and he, which is quite apt because I thought I'd mention it. I won't ridicule him or anything. And he was saying that, it's all great this online, and I don't mind working from home and everything. But when you're trying to do a design or trying to do some drawing, and you talking to the juniors who are, working it, and nothing like being in the same office, same space. So we're looking to get back to the office as soon as possible. So it's interesting. We've talked a lot about in the past podcasts, are mindsets or perceptions going to change? I still think, what I'm hearing is that people are probably going to be a bit more flexible, but the office environment is still kind of here to stay, collecting, getting together for certain sort of roles and sort of things that you have to do.
Yeah.
So
I think that's. I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think this is still important to be able to have those conversations with colleagues when you're working on something. Such as how do you realistically, effectively train younger surveyors if you're not in the same space?
That was exactly his point as well. He said exactly that. That's just reminded me when you said that. Yeah, exactly.
You can't. It's extremely difficult because I remember in my early career, and then as I've become obviously more senior and helped with training of those, in my teams, that they need to be able to come and see you and ask you questions and have that interaction with you. Yes, you can pick up the phone, but it's not quite the same thing. It's not as easy to do so.
Yeah.
You can't just set up a load of drawings in front of you and things. So I think there are things that are missed, and I think everything you said was right. It will be a more flexible approach, but the office is still going to be needed. That may mean that offices or office space used by businesses is a little smaller than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I don't think the office is dead. I think the office will still exist. I think people still need them.
What about individual units or open plan? Because hotels converted to offices is suggesting you have individual offices now. You're not going to go open plan, are you? So it's moving back to that sort of idea. Because I was guessing that if you had a company that would normally on a commuter line or whatever, people would go into London or into a city from that. But if you then had an out of town, out of city sort of location where you then, let's say it was a hotel with 50 rooms and you took 10 of them because you've got 10 staff that you want to work in that location rather than commuting into the city, you're going to be doing 10 individual offices again, aren't you? Rather than open plan. I mean, how have you worked in open plan?
Yeah, I've worked in open plan, and I've mixture of things I've done.
Because I've had a mixture as well, and I have to say, I don't find open plan that easy to sort of concentrate in. That just might be the fact that I'm like a magpie and anything sparkly takes me.
I think I've found it's difficult. I think open plan has its place, and I think it's useful, and I think that it will be here to stay. Personally, I've had both, and there'll be times where I've been working in open plan offices, and you'll need to go and find some quieter space or something. I'll go back to when I was working in London, and the organisation I worked for then had even the directors of the business, everybody was in a hot desking environment, but that was only part of the office. So you had the hot desking environment as part of the office, then you had a nice kitchen area, but then you also had your meeting rooms as private space for private meetings. But not only that, they had these booths that you could go and work in if you wanted a bit of quiet time. So it was really quite flexible, and it gave you the different environments so you could move around and use it for whatever you wanted. So I think that is the best way. For me, that was great because you go down there and you could interact with colleagues if you needed to. But actually, if you also wanted to go and get a bit of quiet space, there were options for you to do that. And if it wasn't just quiet space on your own, if it was to meet and chat with colleagues, you didn't have to necessarily use a formal meeting room. There were other spaces as well. So I think that for me is the perfect model. I've seen a lot of office space where it's open plan, but then the bosses will have their own office. And sometimes I think that doesn't necessarily show well for younger members of the team who, you want access to the senior colleagues and to the bosses and things sometimes. I think it's a difficult one. I have mixed feelings. I quite like my own space. I do, just because you can get your head down and get on with stuff. My business, in the way I'm going, once I start employing people, they'll be in the same office as me, because that will be business decision led and cost led. Which,
and also for a smaller business, I think is important as well. You've got the
agreed,
the boss there as well.
Agreed. I think that will be the case, and that's just dictated by the type of office space that you can buy. You can rent, should I say, that it will be dictated that that's just how it will be. But that's fine when it's only 2, 3, 4 people. And once you start getting a little bit bigger than that, then maybe you need to do something different.
It's and again, the more you think about it, I mean, I can't remember, we probably have talked about this before, but I've moved. I have my direct staff working from home. I'll be working from home, but in the garden office. I still can foresee me wanting to go out, and if there were hot office spaces, or just sort of designated working areas, cafes, and those sort of things that were all COVID safe, or whatever safe is going to mean in the future, in shopping centres and stuff, I could actually see me quite happily every so often just getting a change of scenery. And going out. I mean, I'm quite excited. My first foray out of the local area on Friday, to go to a meeting in a pub garden on Friday afternoon.
Oh, very good.
And that's the first time I've been out further than the local McDonald's or something for the kids, and that's it. So this is like, I'm not entirely sure I can drive that far anymore. I don't. It's interesting to see sort of, am I going to keep enough attention? I mean, before I was driving 300 mile round trips, if not longer. But yeah, I think it's interesting, is that how things are going to again, it's so I find it quite exciting to just speculate, because we haven't got a clue.
No, we haven't got a clue, and we'll be completely right.
I think it's really exciting. I think it's, if I was in that position, in comes that mindset, if I won the lottery, I could buy a hotel and I could try it and I could repurpose it. And, and anyway, what a waste of time and money and effort that might become.
It would be complete. I was going to say, kind of almost to conclude then, I guess, because this is what we started and we were talking about the hotel rooms and things.
Yeah.
Do you think it would work?
I really do. Because I was talking with some others about it, and they said, well, why would people want to do that? They're just happy to work from home. And then you sit there going, nah, they're not happy to work from home. This is the whole point. Everyone's sort of tearing their hair out because they're at home and in that environment, and they haven't got the right sort of location, time, effort, kit, equipment and stuff like this. I think short term it might do. I really do think that little hotel down the road from me that's struggling should at least try it, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But we're Bedford is the end of the line on the Thames link into St Pancras.
Yeah.
So, and I know for a fact, because I refuse to do it, if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go and get the 6 o'clock train in, it's packed.
Yeah.
And was it East? Oh, the one that comes down from Derby, East Midlands.
Yeah.
They stopping at Bedford probably about a year ago, and they only stop there off peak now.
Yes, because it got too busy.
Yeah, and because it was just heaving, and so I think there aren't that many hotels in Bedford that there's some swanky ones, and there's the odd around the edge perimeter sort of Premier Inns and stuff, but there's not much here, and it's kind of in the middle of Cambridge and Oxford, and on the Cambridge-Oxford because they keep telling us, and Milton Keynes just down the road, and all this. So I don't know. I really, I'm not sitting here going, it's a waste of time, don't bother. I'm thinking, if I was having to commute, but I found I could have a local little office that I could pick up piecemeal here and there, go and use it for a couple of weeks and then not, or something like that, because that flexibility was there. I'd be probably quite interested in that.
Yeah, I struggle to see the model for a hotel long term. Short term, yes, but as we hopefully, who knows, exiting the pandemic or the worst of it, I can't see a model for them, because unless they convert a space permanently, I can't see that people will have there'll be a huge or enough demand for it. The model that I almost do like is this repurposing redundant retail units. I think that is a real potential.
Yeah.
I think of my own town, and you look at it and you think, well, actually, there are places there that could really work as spaces to be converted into an office if nothing else can. The rents might be a little bit pricey, I don't know, and maybe they'd have to reconsider those for office space against retail. I'm not a commercial agent, so I don't really understand the difference in pricing there,
but it'd be better than standing empty, though.
It would be, and that we're interested in the article to talk about that, and it talks about, is it better to have somebody paying some rent rather than just being empty,
plus the footfall in all the other shops and other things going on, isn't there?
Yeah. So interesting one anyway.
Yeah.
And who knows? We'll probably come back in a year or two, and nothing will have changed.
No, it would just be the same. We'll all be back in offices licking each other.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Okay. So I think is that us done on this topic? I think it's quite. I
think
good.
So. I don't think
really interesting. So I mean, I would value people's feedback. I mean, this could be an opportunity for people to send comments in, feedback, and let's have a further discussion. If you've actually converted one of these spaces, come and talk to us. That'd be really interesting, actually talking to someone who's actually done it.
I was going to say, it'd be, before we finished, just give us some feedback, people. If you listen to this and you think, oh, that's interesting, or you've got your own idea, your own thoughts, or even your own opinion, you agree with us, you disagree with us, you think we're completely wrong, tell us, because it'd be great to hear, and we can have a bit of a debate about it.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be really good. And so, as always, www.survepod.com, where all of the links and our feedback forms can go and everything, and drop in there, and you'll find this episode sitting there, as well as in all the useful Apple podcasts.
Yeah, the usual providers.
All the usual providers. So, on that note, I'm going to let you finish.
Wash your hands, and don't lick any strangers.
Don't lick any strangers. You forgot to say wash your face, but I'll let you off this time.
Well.
So, yeah, no problem at all. As always, mate, lovely to have the chat, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Cheers
everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. I hear you did the Hot Topic Mind Map forum recently, John, didn't you? So you want to tell me what that's all about?
Yeah, it was really exciting, actually. So every year, twice a year, April and August, we get everyone together. I say everyone, about 80 people. That is naturally everyone together, and we talk hot topics. And we did it just recently, and we had 120 people booked to attend. It's a free event, and we normally only expect about half to turn up, but this time about 85 people turned up, which was fantastic.
Wow.
2 hours it went on for, so having everyone in the room for 2 hours is amazing that they all kind of hung in there. But we mapped out. We've got a mind map that we created probably 2 or 3 years ago. So every 6 months we revisit it and see what the latest topics are. So we added in things like the new cladding stuff that's come out from the RICS. We talked around also the latest updates to PI, and that's all I can remember right now off the top of my head. But we had loads of input. I think we probably added another 15 or 20 topics to it, and it's already huge. I mean, if you try and print it A3, probably about 4 A3s.
Wow.
Size. So, and we also updated our COVID version as well, because obviously that being a hot topic, hopefully that won't be a hot topic for much longer or in the future. So yeah, so that's what we did. So we had a forum, 80 people turned up, gave us lots of input and everything. Fantastic session, and we mapped out what we think are the industry hot topics. Perfect for anybody who's either prepping for the APC now or prepping for the APC in 6 months' time.
Well, it sounds great, John, but there'll be people out there saying, how can I get hold of a copy?
Now, luckily you asked. No, we obviously will make it available. So the 2 hour recording is available, and it basically comes with a little package. It costs £10 and £10 plus VAT, so just over £10. And it's you get the big mind map, you get the COVID mind map, and you get the 2 hour recording for about 3 or 6 months. I haven't decided yet, actually, which one we're doing it on. And all that money is going to charity.
Great. Which charity? Anyone particular?
There's a number, actually. There's one that we support at the moment as a business locally. It's it's called Just Us, and it's a guy who is educating people who are either homeless or on sort of they don't have their own home, as it were, to get them into social housing so that they're not sort of discriminated against, or at least they can have a roof over their head. So he's doing a grand job locally. This guy I know, and he's doing a really good job there. So we support him, and then a couple of good causes. We've got local kids gymnastics club, which we support. They're looking to get a new venue, so we're kind of helping them with the cost of that, and also local kids football and also netball. So lots of little sporty things in the village that I live in and in the region area, but also slightly broader afield. And if there's anything left over, then we tend to throw some money at Lionheart from time to time as well.
Great. So people just basically come onto your website and download a copy.
Yeah, literally just Deliver.com/hot topics, HOTTOPICS, if I spelt that correctly.
Sounded
Hot Topics, and then that'll take you to that page. You can pre-order it at the moment. It will be available in the next few days.
Great stuff.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
I might get one myself.
Well, if you want, you can just give me a tenner. Cool. Thanks so much. Take care. Hello there, and thank you for joining us for our latest episode of the SurveYOUR podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. Don't forget to subscribe at all your favourite podcast providers: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so on. Also on Twitter and Instagram at SurvPod, that's SURVPOD. You can also get us on YouTube. Click the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the little bell. It tells you when we post our latest content, and on our webpage, survepod.com. Don't forget to leave us your reviews, comments, suggestions, and of course any questions. And finally, if you want to come along, join us at a future episode of the SurveYOUR podcast, send us an email to survepod@gmail.com. If you like what you see and hear, tell your friends. Let's put surveying on the map. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't lick any strangers. Bye-bye for now. The SurveYOUR podcast is a copyright Deliver and Invise Limited production. We suggest you come up with your own ideas and not copy ours. Thank you. Catch you again soon. Bye-bye.